I think there's something wonderful about the resilience, the technological prowess, and quite frankly, the touch of bureaucratic absurdity. The saga of Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, the NASA astronauts who have been effectively marooned on the International Space Station for 9 months, has finally reached its resolution. And thanks to SpaceX's Crew 10 mission, these unintended long term inhabitants of the ISS are finally making their way home. But how did we get here? Wilmore and Williams originally embarked on their journey to the ISS in June 2024 aboard Boeing's Starliner capsule. This mission, intended as a mere 8-day stint, was primarily a test flight of Boeing's long-awaited competitor to SpaceX's Crew Dragon. However, this test flight ended up testing much more than expected, specifically patience, problem-solving skills, and NASA's ability to navigate an increasingly awkward commercial space rivalry. Shortly after their arrival, it became apparent that Starliner had critical propulsion issues, with some of its thrusters failing and helium leaks compromising its functionality. NASA, exercising an abundance of caution, ruled out using Starliner for the return journey, preferring to send it back to Earth uncrewed in September. And this left Wilmore and Williams in a precarious position, effectively stuck in orbit without a ride home. And faced with the unenviable situation of having two astronauts stranded on the ISS, NASA turned to SpaceX's reliable Crew Dragon capsule. However, rather than sending a bespoke rescue mission, NASA opted to bring them back during the next scheduled crew rotation, a decision that prolonged their stay by an additional 6 months. Crew 10, consisting of US astronauts Anne McClain, Nicole Ayers, Japanese astronaut Takuya Onishi, and Russian cosmonaut Kirill Peskov, launched from Florida aboard a Falcon 9 rocket after a slight delay because of a hydraulic issue on the ground. And after a flawless docking on March 16th, the ISS finally welcomed its relief crew, paving the way for a Crew 9, Wilmore, Williams, Nick Hague, and the Russian cosmonaut Alexander Gorbunov, to return home. Adding an unexpected layer of intrigue, the president has waded into the fray, criticizing NASA for leaving astronauts in space for political reasons, and Elon Musk, ever one to seize an opportunity, echoed the sentiment, suggesting that SpaceX could have brought them back sooner. NASA officials, however, pushed back on this claim, saying that their priority was ensuring astronauts' safety rather than making a hasty and risky decision. Wilmore and Williams, both seasoned astronauts, handled their extended stay with remarkable composure. Williams even described the ISS as her happy place, while Wilmore embraced the unexpected challenge. But space travel is as much a psychological challenge as it is a technical one, and prolonged missions can take their toll on mental and physical health, with astronauts facing muscle atrophy, radiation exposure, and the emotional strain of being away from loved ones for far longer than anticipated. As Dr. Simon Barber from the Open University has pointed out, the astronauts were sent on a work trip that was meant to last a week, only to find themselves in orbit for nearly a year. And that level of disruption inevitably takes a personal toll, despite their professionalism and adaptability. For Boeing, the incident is nothing short of humiliating. The Starliner project has been plagued by delays and technical failures, and the optics of two NASA astronauts being brought home in a rival's spacecraft is, as one expert put it, not a good look. With Boeing already struggling with credibility in both the aviation and the space sectors, this incident only adds fuel to concerns about its ability to compete with SpaceX's increasingly dominant presence in commercial spaceflight. Despite the delays and the complications, the successful rescue of Wilmore and Williams underscores the resilience of international space cooperation and the necessity of having multiple spacecraft capable of ferrying astronauts to and from the ISS. SpaceX has once again proven its reliability, while Boeing will need to go back to the drawing board and address the critical issues that plagued Starliner. The mission also raises broader questions about how NASA navigates its partnerships with private companies. Should there be contingency plans in place for future failures? Of course there should. Should the ISS rely solely on one provider? Of course it shouldn't. And how can NASA ensure that commercial competition doesn't compromise astronaut safety? So, celebrating the return of Wilmore and Williams, I think it's necessary to acknowledge the challenges that remain. The era of commercial spaceflight is well underway, but incidents like this remind us that space travel is still an immensely complex endeavour where failures are costly both in terms of money and human experience. For now, though, I suppose we can breathe a sigh of relief. Williams and Wilmore are finally coming home, and perhaps, just perhaps, their next trip to space will have a more predictable itinerary.